Walk into almost any supermarket on Earth, in the middle of winter or at the height of summer, and one fruit seems almost immune to the seasons. Bright red, perfectly shaped, identical from one package to the next. The strawberry has become so familiar that it feels timeless, as if it has always existed exactly as we know it. But that comforting image hides an extraordinary truth. The strawberry sitting in a modern grocery store is, in many ways, a biological invention. It is not the fruit that ancient Romans gathered from woodland clearings. It is not the berry medieval Europeans picked along forest paths. And it is certainly not the fruit indigenous peoples harvested across the Americas centuries before European ships crossed the Atlantic. In fact, the modern strawberry is the unlikely descendant of two wild plants separated by nearly 8,000 kilometers of ocean. One grew along the forests of eastern North America. The other clung to the windswept Pacific coast of Chile. They would never have met on their own. Empires brought them together. Explorers carried them across oceans. Gardeners unknowingly transformed them. Scientists spent centuries perfecting them. And today, more than 9 million metric tons of strawberries are harvested every year, making them one of the world's most valuable fresh fruits. Behind every sweet bite lies a story of exploration, empire, scientific accident, and agricultural revolution. What looks like one of nature's simplest gifts is, in reality, one of humanity's greatest botanical reinventions. But that is not where this story begins. Long before strawberries filled supermarket shelves, they lived quiet, hidden lives at the edges of forests. Thousands of years ago, wild strawberries spread naturally across much of the northern hemisphere. Europe, Asia, and North America each developed their own native species, producing berries far smaller than the ones people know today. Most were scarcely larger than a thumbnail. Their bright fragrance often announced them before they could even be seen beneath low green leaves. For prehistoric hunter-gatherers, these berries were fleeting rewards. Their season lasted only a few weeks each year, making every harvest a celebration of summer's brief abundance. Unlike grains that could be stored or nuts that lasted through winter, strawberries demanded immediate enjoyment. Their sweetness belonged to the present. As agriculture spread across Europe and the Near East after roughly 10,000 BCE, strawberries remained stubbornly wild. Wheat, barley, olives, and grapes adapted to cultivation because they produced reliable harvests and could be transported over long distances. Strawberries offered neither advantage. Their delicate flesh bruised within hours. An attempt to transplant them often failed. Yet people never stopped admiring them. The ancient Romans praised wild strawberries not simply for their flavor, but for their beauty. Writers associated them with purity and the arrival of spring, while physicians believed the berries could soothe inflammation and improve digestion. Although many of these medicinal claims lacked scientific evidence, they reflected something important. Strawberries occupied a place where nourishment, medicine, and symbolism merged. Across the Atlantic, indigenous peoples had cultivated an even deeper relationship with the fruit. Numerous communities throughout eastern North America gathered wild Virginia strawberries every summer, eating them fresh, drying them for later use, or mixing them into breads and cornmeal dishes. For several nations, strawberries became symbols of renewal and reconciliation. In some traditions, they were remembered as the first fruit to ripen after winter, representing healing after hardship. Meanwhile, in East Asia, native strawberry species thrived in mountain valleys and woodland clearings. Chinese herbal traditions occasionally recorded their use, while Japanese forests sheltered varieties that would later contribute to modern breeding efforts centuries afterward. By the Middle Ages, strawberries had woven themselves into European culture in unexpected ways. Artists painted them beneath images of the Virgin Mary as symbols of humility and righteousness. Medieval herbalists prescribed strawberry leaves for digestive ailments and brewed them into teas. Noble households prized fresh berries as rare seasonal luxuries, while ordinary villagers searched forest edges for their annual harvest. Still, despite centuries of admiration, humanity remained unable to transform strawberries into a dependable crop. They were too fragile, too unpredictable, too wild. For thousands of years, strawberries belonged more to forests than to farms. Everything was about to change. The transformation of the strawberry began not in a farmer's field, but in the gardens of Europe's scientific elite. By the 16th century, the Renaissance had ignited an unprecedented fascination with plants. Wealthy monarchs and aristocrats competed to fill elaborate botanical gardens with exotic species collected from around the world. Explorers returned from distant voyages carrying seeds, roots, and cuttings alongside gold and spices. Plants became trophies of empire as much as objects of science. Among these botanical treasures was a remarkable newcomer from North America. French explorers encountered the Virginia strawberry Fragaria virginiana, a species that produced fruit smaller than today's berries, but noticeably sweeter and more vigorous than many European varieties. Gardeners quickly recognized its potential and transported living plants back across the Atlantic during the early 17th century. Then came an even more extraordinary discovery. In the early 18th century, French military engineer Amédée-François Frisier was sent to the Pacific coast of present-day Chile to observe Spanish fortifications. During his journey, he encountered a strawberry unlike any Europe had ever seen. The Chilean strawberry Fragaria chiloensis produced unusually large, pale-colored fruit cultivated for generations by indigenous Mapuche communities. Frisier returned to France in 1714, carrying several living plants aboard his ship. Most of them struggled to survive. Those that did produced almost no fruit. For years, European gardeners believed the Chilean strawberry had been a disappointment. What they did not understand was that strawberries possess complex reproductive biology. Many of the imported plants lacked compatible partners for effective pollination. Then, sometime during the 1750s, in a garden near the French town of Brest, something remarkable happened. The Chilean strawberry grew close to the North American Virginia strawberry. Bees carried pollen between them. Nature did the rest. The accidental cross produced a vigorous new hybrid with an almost impossible combination of traits. The sweetness and resilience of the Virginia strawberry fused with the impressive size of the Chilean variety. This new plant became known as Fragaria times ananassa, the garden strawberry. Nearly every commercial strawberry consumed today traces its ancestry back to that chance encounter. It was one of history's most successful botanical accidents. Suddenly, strawberries could be larger, more productive, and easier to cultivate than any wild species that had come before. Gardeners across France, England, and the Netherlands eagerly propagated the new hybrid. Within decades, it had begun replacing older woodland varieties throughout Europe. This was more than a horticultural breakthrough. It marked a profound shift in humanity's relationship with the fruit. For the first time, strawberries no longer belonged primarily to forests or fleeting summer harvests. They became objects of deliberate improvement. Growers selected plants with brighter color, sweeter flavor, larger size, and greater yields, unknowingly beginning a breeding process that would continue for centuries. The strawberry had crossed an invisible threshold. It was no longer merely discovered. It had been reinvented, and that reinvention would soon connect the berry to the expanding machinery of global trade, empire, and agricultural science in ways no 18th century gardener could have imagined. The modern strawberry was born in a French garden, but its true birthplace was much larger than that. It stretched from the forests of eastern North America to the Pacific coast of South America, across the Atlantic Ocean, and into the expanding networks of European empire. No single nation created the strawberry. It was assembled by an age of exploration that rearranged the living world. Historians often describe the Columbian exchange through familiar examples: potatoes, maize, tomatoes, sugar, tobacco, and horses. These were the commodities that transformed populations, economies, and empires. Yet alongside these famous travelers moved thousands of quieter passengers, plants collected by sailors, missionaries, soldiers, and naturalists. Most never became globally important. The strawberry did. By the 18th century, Europe's great powers had become obsessed with cataloging nature. Botanical gardens multiplied in cities such as Paris, London, Leiden, and Madrid. They were more than beautiful collections. They functioned as laboratories of empire, where plants from distant colonies were studied, exchanged, and tested for economic value. Every successful crop represented potential wealth. Governments financed expeditions not only to chart coastlines, but to identify useful species. Seeds were carefully packed into wooden boxes. Living plants traveled aboard crowded ships alongside soldiers, livestock, and merchants. Many died during months at sea. Those that survived entered networks of experimentation that connected continents. The strawberry benefited from this system. Unlike spices or sugar, strawberries were never worth transporting as fruit across oceans. They spoiled within days. Their value lay in something far more durable, their genetics. A single healthy plant could produce runners, long stems that created genetically identical offspring. Gardeners quickly learned to multiply desirable varieties without relying on seed. This allowed exceptional strawberries to spread through Europe with surprising speed. Royal estates competed to cultivate the finest berries. In France, strawberries became fixtures of aristocratic gardens, served during lavish banquets where fresh fruit remained a seasonal luxury. In Britain, wealthy landowners invested in glasshouses and improved cultivation techniques, extending the harvest beyond its natural limits. Dutch horticulturists refined propagation methods, while German botanists carefully documented new varieties. The strawberry had become fashionable, yet its growing popularity reflected more than changing tastes. It symbolized mastery over nature itself. The Enlightenment celebrated classification, measurement, and improvement. Plants were no longer accepted as fixed creations. They could be crossed, selected, reshaped, and optimized. Every successful hybrid suggested that human knowledge could outperform nature's own designs. The strawberry embodied that confidence. By the 19th century, improved transportation accelerated its spread even further. Better roads connected rural farms to expanding cities. Railways shortened journeys that once took days into mere hours. Fresh strawberries, previously confined to nearby villages, could now reach urban markets before they spoiled. Demand exploded. Commercial nurseries emerged across Europe and North America, offering dozens of name varieties. Farmers selected berries not only for sweetness, but for firmness, color, productivity, and shelf life. The fruit was becoming a commodity. Then came another transformation. European settlers carried strawberry plants to Australia, New Zealand, and southern Africa. Breeders in Japan developed varieties adapted to local climates. North American farmers established increasingly specialized berry farms, while improved cultivation methods made harvests larger each decade. For the first time in history, strawberries were no longer regional curiosities. They had become a global crop. This was one of those quiet revolutions that rarely appears in history books. No treaty announced it. No battle secured it. No emperor claimed credit. Yet the same imperial networks that moved armies and silver also moved pollen, roots, and ideas. The world had connected its ecosystems, and the strawberry was living proof. Unlike sugar, cotton, or tobacco, strawberries did not finance slave empires. Their history is different, but different does not mean free from exploitation. As strawberry cultivation expanded during the 19th and 20th centuries, the fruit revealed a different reality of industrial agriculture, one built not on permanent plantations, but on seasonal labor, relentless speed, and invisible human effort. Strawberries are among the most demanding commercial crops on Earth. Every berry must be picked by hand. Machines can shake olives from trees and harvest fields of wheat, but strawberries bruise at the slightest pressure. A berry picked too early lacks sweetness. Picked too late, it softens before reaching the customer. Every harvest depends on human judgment. As demand increased, growers needed thousands of workers willing to perform repetitive, physically exhausting labor under strict time pressure. The rise of California transformed this equation. By the early 20th century, California's mild climate, fertile valleys, and expanding irrigation systems made it one of the world's premier strawberry-growing regions. Universities, particularly the University of California, developed improved varieties that produced larger harvests and resisted disease. Production soared. Yet behind this agricultural success stood an enormous workforce. Japanese immigrants were among the first commercial strawberry farmers in California, introducing intensive cultivation techniques during the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Many built thriving businesses before the Second World War. Then history intervened. Following the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941, more than 120,000 Japanese Americans were forcibly removed from their homes and incarcerated in internment camps. Thousands lost farms they had spent decades building. The strawberry industry changed hands almost overnight. After the war, new waves of labor arrived. Mexican workers entered the fields through programs such as the Bracero program, established in 1942 to address wartime labor shortages. Later generations of migrant workers continued harvesting strawberries across California, Florida, Spain, Mexico, and other producing regions. The work remained extraordinarily difficult. Harvest often begins before sunrise. Workers spend hours bent close to the ground, repeating the same movement thousands of times each day. Every tray must meet strict quality standards. Every damaged berry represents lost income. Speed becomes survival. Modern strawberry farming also introduced new environmental challenges. During the 20th century, growers increasingly relied on chemical fumigants to sterilize soil before planting. One of the most widely used substances, methyl bromide, proved highly effective against pests but also damaged the Earth's ozone layer. International agreements eventually phased out most of its agricultural use, forcing the industry to search for alternatives. Then there was plastic. By the second half of the 20th century, black plastic mulch covered countless strawberry fields around the world. It conserved moisture, suppressed weeds, warmed soil, and increased yields dramatically. It also generated mountains of agricultural waste. Each season ended with thousands of tons of used plastic requiring disposal or recycling. Meanwhile, climate change introduced fresh uncertainty. Strawberries require carefully balanced temperatures, reliable water supplies, and predictable flowering seasons. Prolonged droughts, heat waves, and shifting weather patterns increasingly threaten harvests across major producing regions. The fruit remained profitable, but maintaining that profitability demanded ever more labor, technology, and environmental management. Consumers rarely saw any of it. In the supermarket, strawberries appeared effortless, clean, bright, and perfectly arranged. The hands that picked them remained largely invisible. History often remembers empires through kings and generals. Yet the modern strawberry tells another story, one in which the world's most delicate fruit rests upon the labor of millions whose names history seldom records. For thousands of years, strawberries have been defined by one simple limitation. They cannot travel far. A harvest picked in the morning often spoiled within days. Even after the garden strawberry transformed cultivation, distance remained the industry's greatest enemy. The 20th century solved that problem, and in doing so, it changed everything. The first breakthrough came through plant breeding. Scientists no longer selected strawberries only for flavor. They searched for plants that could survive transportation, resist disease, produce uniform fruit, and ripen consistently. The berry itself became an engineering project. Researchers crossed hundreds of varieties, carefully documenting each generation. A single successful cultivar could reshape an entire industry. In California, breeding programs accelerated after the Second World War. Universities partnered with growers to develop strawberries capable of thriving in commercial agriculture. Larger fruit reduced harvesting costs. Firmer flesh survived shipping. Higher yields lowered prices. The strawberry became less fragile and far more profitable. The second breakthrough happened beyond the field. Refrigeration. Before refrigerated trucks and cold storage warehouses, fresh fruit markets remained intensely local. Distance meant decay. Cold chain logistics rewrote those rules. Harvested strawberries could now be cooled within hours, transported hundreds or even thousands of kilometers, and arrive with remarkable freshness. Air freight later allowed premium berries to cross continents in a matter of days. Seasonality began to disappear. Consumers no longer expected strawberries only in late spring. Supermarkets demanded year-round supply, encouraging growers to stagger production across different climates and hemispheres. California harvested. Mexico followed. Spain supplied Europe through winter. Morocco, Egypt, South Korea, and other producers entered global markets. The strawberry became a traveler. By the early 21st century, global production exceeded 9 million metric tons annually, with China emerging as the world's largest producer by volume, while countries such as the United States, Mexico, Spain, and Turkey became major exporters. The economics of the berry had fundamentally changed. Success no longer depended solely on fertile land. It required genetics, logistics, refrigeration, packaging, marketing, and international coordination. Yet industrial success introduced an unexpected compromise. Many consumers noticed that supermarket strawberries often looked spectacular but tasted disappointingly mild. Appearance had begun to outrank flavor. Breeders favored firmness over softness, shelf life over fragrance, transportability over delicate sweetness. The qualities that delighted retailers were not always the qualities that delighted the human palate. Scientists are now working to reverse some of those trade-offs, identifying the aromatic compounds responsible for the rich flavor of traditional varieties while preserving the durability demanded by modern commerce. It is a reminder that every improvement comes with a cost. Around the middle of this story, it is worth pausing for a moment. If the journey of an ordinary strawberry can reveal centuries of exploration, science, empire, and hidden labor, imagine what other everyday foods are quietly carrying through history. If you're enjoying this documentary, consider subscribing. You may never look at your kitchen the same way again. The strawberry's transformation was never simply about growing a better fruit. It was about reinventing the relationship between nature, technology, and global commerce. The berry that once survived only along quiet woodland paths had become one of the defining achievements of modern agriculture. And its story was far from over. By the dawn of the 21st century, the strawberry had completed one of the most remarkable transformations in agricultural history. It was no longer simply a seasonal fruit. It had become a global brand. Today, strawberries are grown on every inhabited continent except Antarctica. They appear in supermarkets 12 months a year, shipped across oceans in refrigerated containers and delivered through supply chains so efficient that many consumers rarely stop to wonder where they came from. In many countries, children grow up assuming strawberries are as constant as bread or milk. History has quietly erased their seasonality. Behind that illusion lies an industry worth tens of billions of dollars annually. Fresh berries remain the largest market, but strawberries have also become one of the most recognizable flavors in the world. They fill yogurt cups, breakfast cereals, candies, pastries, jams, ice creams, soft drinks, and nutritional supplements. Even products that contain no real strawberries often borrow the fruit's identity. This reveals another curious contradiction. The strawberry flavor familiar to millions rarely tastes like a fresh strawberry. Artificial strawberry flavoring was developed by identifying aromatic compounds found in the fruit and recreating them chemically. Because commercial strawberries are often bred for durability rather than intense aroma, many people associate the candy version of strawberry with childhood more strongly than the fruit itself. In some ways, the symbol has become more powerful than the crop. Advertising helped shape that transformation. Bright red berries came to represent freshness, romance, indulgence, and health all at once. Their heart-like shape linked them with love and celebration. Valentine's Day desserts, wedding cakes, chocolate-covered strawberries, and summer festivals reinforced an emotional connection that extended far beyond nutrition. The strawberry became a cultural icon. Social media accelerated this process even further. Perfectly symmetrical berries appeared in food photography across the world, while premium Japanese gift strawberries, painstakingly cultivated for flawless appearance, could sell for astonishing prices. In luxury fruit markets, a single berry became an object of craftsmanship rather than simple agriculture. At the opposite end of the spectrum, fast food chains and multinational food companies relied on strawberries to market convenience and wellness. Smoothies promised vitality. Fruit snacks suggested natural goodness. Packaging displayed lush berries even when the product contained only a small amount of real fruit. The image carried enormous commercial power. Meanwhile, science continued reshaping the berry itself. Genetic research accelerated breeding programs, allowing scientists to identify traits associated with disease resistance, sweetness, drought tolerance, and shelf life with unprecedented precision. Greenhouses expanded across Europe and Asia, while hydroponic systems demonstrated that strawberries could thrive without traditional soil. Vertical farms introduced another possibility. Inside climate-controlled buildings illuminated by LED lights, strawberries could grow year-round using carefully measured water and nutrients. These systems consumed less land and reduced transportation distances for urban markets, though they required significant energy investment. The industry also faced increasing scrutiny. Consumers began asking difficult questions. Who harvested these berries? How much water did they require? What pesticides were used? How much plastic protected each shipment? Retailers responded with sustainability initiatives, recyclable packaging, integrated pest management, and certifications for responsible farming. Progress has been uneven, but the conversation itself marked an important shift. The strawberry was no longer judged only by its appearance. Its history had become part of its value. Every berry now carried invisible stories of breeding laboratories, refrigerated warehouses, migrant workers, pollinating bees, global logistics, and environmental stewardship. It was still sweet, but sweetness had acquired context. The next time someone picks up a carton of strawberries, they will likely notice only the color. A rich, familiar red. Yet hidden beneath that surface is a journey spanning thousands of years. The fruit began as tiny wild berries scattered across forests separated by continents. It survived because animals spread its seeds and because humans treasured its brief appearance every summer. For millennia, it resisted cultivation, refusing to become one more obedient crop. Then history intervened. Empires connected ecosystems that had evolved apart for millions of years. Explorers unknowingly reunited distant relatives. Gardeners witnessed an accidental hybrid. Scientists refined it through generations of careful breeding. Farmers transformed it into a commercial crop. Refrigeration carried it across oceans. Corporations turned it into a global symbol. The strawberry never conquered the world through conquest. It traveled through curiosity, through science, through commerce, and through countless acts of human ingenuity. Yet its story also reminds us that every convenience has a history. Every perfectly arranged supermarket display depends upon invisible systems of labor, transportation, water, energy, and environmental management. The berry that seems effortless is anything but. Perhaps that is the most surprising lesson. The modern strawberry is not simply a gift of nature. It is the product of centuries of collaboration between nature and humanity, between wild ecosystems and cultivated fields, between accidental discovery and deliberate innovation. It was never just a strawberry. It was a map of the modern world. The next time you taste a strawberry, remember that you're eating far more than a piece of fruit. You're tasting the forests of ancient Europe, the fields of North America, the Pacific coast of Chile, the gardens of 18th century France, the work of generations of breeders, and the labor of millions who continue to harvest one of the world's most delicate crops. Few everyday foods carry such an extraordinary history beneath their familiar surface. If you enjoyed uncovering the hidden history of the strawberry, Consider subscribing for more documentaries that reveal the remarkable stories hidden inside ordinary things. And before you go, leave a comment. What part of the strawberry's history surprised you the most? And what everyday food should we uncover next? Because sometimes the smallest things leave the biggest mark on history.